The rain wasn't a downpour. Not yet. It was a cold, persistent drizzle that seeps into your bones. For Specialist Era Vance, a title she wore like an ill-fitting coat, the rain was a familiar adversary. She stood at parade rest on the edge of the asphalt drill square at Fort Gentry. She had been sent out here an hour ago, ordered to verify the serial number on a perimeter floodlight by a trio of fresh-faced recruits who found her quiet presence in the logistics office affront to their burgeoning military pride. The floodlight was perfectly fine. The real reason was to put the new civilian analyst in her place. They thought she was soft, a paper pusher. They forced her to stand in the rain, a petty act of dominance. And so she stood motionless, letting the water bead on her simple gray jacket. But this humiliation was temporary. Soon everything would change. Soon, a ghost from her past would arrive, and the salute he would give her would shatter their small world. The recruits, led by a cocky private named Riggs, watched from the dry cover of the barracks doorway. They saw a woman in her late 30s with plain brown hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that seemed to absorb light without reflecting it. They saw a civilian contractor who didn't understand the chain of command. What they failed to see was the calculus unfolding behind those placid eyes. She wasn't just standing in the rain. She was observing. Her mind was mapping the base. The drizzle distorted visibility, creating blind spots between the guard towers. The runoff patterns on the asphalt revealed subtle grating invisible on a dry day, information that could be used to predict the flow of incendiaries. The way the wind whipped around the corner of the motor pool building created a sound shadow where a whispered conversation would go unheard. Every drop of rain was a data point. Her official file listed her as Era Vance, Logistics Analyst GS 11. It was a masterpiece of bureaucratic fiction. It mentioned a degree in supply chain management and a decade of experience with a private defense contractor. It was all true in the most technically correct and profoundly misleading way possible. The lines that were missing, the heavily redacted paragraphs, told the real story. They spoke of operations in hostile territories so classified they were never officially acknowledged. The summons came not as an apology, but as another command. A runner skidded to a halt before her. "Colonel Madsen wants to see you. Admin building now." She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. As she passed the barracks, Riggs and his friends fell silent, their amusement curdling into confusion. Her utter lack of reaction was more unnerving than any outburst. Colonel Madsen's office was a shrine to military order. He did not invite her to sit. He held up a thin manila folder with her name on the tab. "Specialist Vance, I've been reviewing your file. It's sparse. It contains all the relevant information for my assigned duties, Colonel." "Does it?" he challenged, tossing the folder onto the desk. "It says you're here to optimize our supply chain. A civilian contractor, yet you carry yourself like a soldier. The men are talking. They say you stood in the rain for an hour without moving." "Who are you, Miss Vance?" "I'm a logistics analyst, sir. My job is to observe and report." "Your last posting was with the Amaranth Group," he said with disdain. "I've never heard of them." "We value discretion," she replied. Madsen's eyes narrowed. "Fort Gentry is a training facility for some of the finest soldiers in the world. We don't need a paper pusher from some no-name company telling us how to manage our supplies. Your presence here was not my decision. It came from the Pentagon. You are a guest here, a temporary one. You will perform your duties, file your reports, and stay out of the way of the real soldiers. Is that understood?" "Understood, Colonel." "You will confine your observations to the supply depot and administration buildings. The training grounds, the armory, the firing ranges, they are off limits. You have no security clearance for tactical areas." "As you wish, Colonel," she said as she turned to leave. Her eyes swept over his desk. She noted the brand of his pen, the secure sat phone, the model of encrypted laptop. She saw a framed photograph of a younger Madsen standing beside another officer, a man with a familiar hawk-like intensity. General Thorne. Every piece of information was a potential key. Madsen thought he had contained the anomaly. He had no idea he had just given her the one thing she needed most: the freedom of being utterly and completely underestimated. For the next 2 weeks, Era became a ghost in the machine of Fort Gentry. She adhered to Madsen's restrictions to the letter, but a cage is only a cage if you see the bars. She saw a lattice of information and began to weave it. She cross-referenced ammunition requisitions with fuel consumption logs. The 3rd Training Battalion was burning through fuel at a rate 20% higher than the others, yet their ammunition expenditure was 10% lower. To her, it read as inefficiency, a weakness. She spent hours in the base archives pulling original blueprints dating back to the Cold War. She traced the paths of old copper communication lines long since decommissioned. She memorized the layout of storm drains, maintenance tunnels, and forgotten conduits. The base's hidden circulatory system. Her observation of people was just as meticulous. She learned the guard rotations by observing subtle shifts in posture. She noticed the night shift guards were consistently slower between 0300 and 0400 hours. She watched the recruits. Riggs was a natural leader, but reckless. His team was fast and aggressive, but also loud. They were a hammer, effective against a stationary nail, but useless against a target that could think. One afternoon in Warehouse 7, Specialist Cole approached her. "Ma'am, you denied the request for new lithium-ion batteries." "That's correct. The existing stock doesn't rotate. You have 300 batteries sitting on the shelf. Their charge slowly decaying. Standard procedure is inefficient. Implement a first-in, first-out rotation." Cole was stunned. No one had ever explained the why of logistics to him. "Thank you, ma'am," he said with newfound respect. He started telling others about the analyst who could see things no one else could. She was building a comprehensive threat assessment model of Fort Gentry inside her head. She knew its logistical weaknesses, its infrastructural vulnerabilities, its human fallibilities. She knew the storm was coming. The storm arrived on a Tuesday, a violent elemental force. The wind howled, ripping at the hangars. Rain came down in blinding sheets, turning the grounds into churning mud. Inside the Tactical Operations Center, the atmosphere was controlled chaos. Colonel Madsen stood at the center. "Status report," he barked. "Sir, we've lost satellite uplink. All external comms are down except the landline to Central Command. Perimeter sensors are going haywire. Too many false positives. We're blind out there. And what about Trident Convoy? They were due to check in 30 minutes ago. No contact, sir." The landline to Central Command suddenly died. The TOC was now truly isolated. Madsen's calm was fraying, his commands becoming sharper. It was in this moment that Era Vance walked into the TOC. She hadn't been summoned. She moved with quiet purpose, carrying a small Pelican case. She walked directly to a dusty panel labeled Auxiliary Systems and began opening it. A captain moved to intercept. "Ma'am, this is a restricted area. Civilians are not authorized." She ignored him, removing specialized tools. With practiced movements, she pried open the panel, revealing antiquated copper wiring. Madsen noticed her. "Vance, what in God's name do you think you're doing? I gave you a direct order to stay out of tactical areas." She didn't look at him. "Colonel, your satellite array is down. Your fiber optic lines are likely damaged by flooding. Your radio communications are being smothered by the storm. You are trying to solve a 21st century problem with 21st century tools that are failing." She connected a ruggedized device to the copper wires. "This is a shielded hardline laid in the 1960s to withstand an electromagnetic pulse. It hasn't been used in 30 years, but it still runs directly from this TOC to an emergency bunker 10 miles east. It has independent power and redundant comms on a different frequency band. It's old technology, but it's reliable. And right now, reliability is the only thing that matters." The room fell silent. She locked the connectors into place and gave the hand crank a few turns. A green light blinked steadily. "Patch your headset into this port. Use low-band frequency. Tell the bunker to relay a message to Central Command." The comms officer looked at Madsen. His face was a mask of conflicting emotions, fury at her insubordination, but also grudging realization that she had achieved in 90 seconds what his team had failed to do. He gave a sharp nod. "Mayday, mayday. This is Fort Gentry TOC to any station. Do you copy?" A faint, distorted voice answered. "Gentry TOC, this is Bunker. Read you faint, but clear. What's your status?" Relief swept through the room. Madsen stared at her. "Where did you learn this?" It was in the original base schematics. "In the archives, section 7B. Public record." Before Madsen could respond, the comms officer shouted, "Sir, I have contact. The bunker is relaying a message from Trident Convoy. What's their status?" The sergeant listened, his face growing pale. Sir, their route was washed out by flash flood. They detoured into Black Creek Ravine. The lead vehicle is disabled. They've crossed the boundary into the reservation. He paused. They report seeing two unmarked technicals, armed, moving towards their position. They believe they've been spotted. The room went cold. A lost training convoy had just become a potential hostage situation. Madsen's mind raced, cycling through protocols that no longer applied. He looked at Era Vance. She stood perfectly still, her gaze fixed on the tactical map, tracing the topographical lines. In a room full of panicked soldiers looking at screens, she was the only one looking at the terrain. You see something, Vance? Madsen asked, his tone stripped of condescension. The convoy's transponder is GPS-based. It gives us their location, but not their environment. The hostiles know the ravine. We don't. That's the tactical disadvantage. She walked to the main console and brought up different overlays, geological survey maps, and old forestry records. The transponder is pinging from this position. The hostiles are approaching from the northeast along the ridge. Standard flanking maneuver. The recruits are trapped with minimal cover. We can't get a drone up in this weather. A captain interjected. No ISR, no eyes on target. We don't need eyes in the sky. We need ears on the ground. She looked at Cole. The seismic sensors at the perimeter fence. What's their status? They're still online, ma'am. But they're throwing thousands of false readings. Filter them. Ignore any reading above 40 magnitude. I want you to isolate everything between 15 and 25. I'm looking for rhythmic impacts moving in unison. What are we looking for? Madsen asked. The engine signatures of those technicals. They're diesel. They have a distinct low-frequency vibration. The rock in that ravine will conduct the vibrations. The perimeter sensors can pick them up even from miles away. Understanding rippled through the TOC. Cole's fingers flew across his keyboard. I've got it, ma'am. Two distinct signatures moving along the northern ridge. Speed approximately 15 kilometers per hour. They're not attacking, Aram used. They're hurting them. There's a box canyon 3 clicks east. It's a natural trap. That's their destination. The shift was complete. Era was no longer an analyst. She was the de facto tactical commander. We have a QRF on standby, Madsen said, now seeking guidance. They won't be going in blind. She turned to comms. Get the convoy back on the line. She leaned toward the microphone. Trident leader, this is Gentry TOC. Do not acknowledge. We have you. We have the hostiles. Your job is to stay alive. I'm going to walk you out of there. Madsen made it official. Vance, you have tactical oversight. The quick reaction force is yours to command. Get my men back. She gave a curt nod. Cole, keep feeding me updates on the hostiles from seismic data. Comms, relay to Trident leader. Expend 10 rounds from the M249 into the north wall of the ravine. Do it now. The order was bizarre. Waste ammunition, give away position. But no one questioned it. 30 seconds later, Cole shouted, Ma'am, I've got it. Seismic sensors picked up the impacts. I can triangulate their exact position. Precisely. We just used their own weapon as a sonar ping. She turned to Lieutenant Harris. Your team will deploy in 2 light armored vehicles. Take the old firebreak trail 2 miles south. The storm will have turned it to mud, but your vehicles can handle it. It will bring you up on the southern ridge opposite the hostiles. Your approach will be masked by dense pine. You will have surprise and high ground. Rules of engagement. Primary objective is recovery. Avoid direct engagement if possible. The hostiles are trying to trap our men. We are going to trap them instead. She turned to comms. Relay to Trident leader. Fall back toward the box canyon. Move slowly. Make it look like panic. Draw them in. For the next hour, the TOC was a symphony of controlled tension. She cross-referenced seismic data with the recruits' retreat. At one point, the hostiles stopped. Ma'am, the signatures stopped. They're holding position. They're suspicious. The retreat is too perfect. She paused. Tell Trident leader to fire a red flare. A flare? Madsen questioned. That will give away their position. It's a signal of distress. It will make their retreat look genuine. Minutes later, Cole reported, They're moving again, ma'am. Faster. They're taking the bait. Descending into the ravine. QRF, what's your status? We are in position on the southern ridge. We have eyes on the canyon entrance. Undetected. Hold position. Wait until both hostiles enter the canyon. Do not fire until our men are clear. Finally, Cole confirmed it. Both hostile signatures are inside the canyon. QRF, you are weapons free. Block the entrance. Disable the vehicles. She switched channels. Trident leader at the west, and there's a game trail to the southern ridge. Move your men. Now, the trap was sprung. The operation had reached its climax. Commanded by the civilian analyst they had left standing in the rain, the storm broke just before dawn. The crisis was over. Lieutenant Harris's QRF had executed perfectly, blocking the canyon and disabling the technicals. The militia group had surrendered. Trident convoy was safe and en route back. Colonel Madsen stood near the main console. Era was back in her corner, calmly monitoring the convoy's return, her work done. Everything had changed. She had shattered their world and pieced it back together better than before. The door to the Tussie opened, and a figure entered who commanded immediate attention. He was tall and lean with silver hair and a face carved from granite. He wore the 2 stars of a major general. It was General Thorne. "General, we weren't expecting you until 0800, Madsen said at attention. Thorne waved dismissively, his eyes scanning the room. "The storm expedited my travel. I heard you had a busy night." The first report mentioned a civilian analyst coordinating a rescue operation. My curiosity was piqued. His gaze swept the room until it landed on Era. His eyes widened in disbelief, then softened with recognition, relief, and deep respect. He walked past the stunned Madsen directly toward her. "It's been a long time," the general said, his voice a low rumble. "Yes, sir. It has," she replied. He turned to Madsen. "Colonel, I need to see this analyst's full unredacted security file. Top-level clearance. Omega Protocol." "Sir, her file is heavily classified. I don't have the authority." "I do." Thorne's aide produced a tablet from a secured briefcase. Thorne scanned the screen, his expression confirming what he already knew. He looked at the assembled staff. For the last 5 years, the special operations community has had a ghost story. They talk about an operator who could see the entire battlefield, who could guide teams through impossible situations, who could find weaknesses in any system. An operator who went by the call sign Wraith. He held up the tablet, displaying a photograph of a younger Era in combat fatigues beside a single word, Wraith. Wraith led the team that recovered hostages from the Alcadir compound. Wraith planned the infiltration of the Red Talon mountain fortress, 0 casualties. Wraith disappeared 2 years ago after a mission in Eastern Europe. We thought she was dead. He looked at her with reverence. It seems she just took a job in logistics. The reveal fell upon the room with physical force. The quiet paper pusher was a living legend. Cole looked like he might faint. The recruits stared, mouths agape. The name Wraith was whispered in barracks at night, and she had been sitting in their logistics office all along. Madsen stared at her, his worldview crumbling to dust. He had tried to confine a storm to a teacup. The drizzle returned. Era stood on the same drill square, looking at the same horizon. Behind her, the barracks door opened. Private Riggs and his friends emerged, their faces smudged with dirt and exhaustion. They saw her standing there. Riggs stopped, the arrogance gone. He remembered his petty cruelty, and the memory burned with shame. Just then, General Thorne walked purposefully across the wet asphalt, followed by Colonel Madsen. He came to a halt directly in front of her. The rain fell between them. He looked at her not as a subordinate, but as an equal. He saw the warrior beneath. Then, in the middle of the rain-swept drill square, in full view of everyone, Major General Thorne raised his hand to his brow. He executed the sharpest, most formal, most respectful salute of his long career. It was not a salute to a subordinate. It was a salute to a legend. It acknowledged her sacrifice, honored her skill, and begged forgiveness for a system too blind to see her. Her placid expression broke slightly. A flicker of emotion passed through her eyes. She did not salute back. She was a civilian. Instead, she gave a slow, deliberate nod. Behind the general, Colonel Madsen rendered his own salute, his silent formal apology. Riggs watched, his throat tight. He understood now. True strength was the quiet, unshakable calm she had displayed standing in this very spot. He snapped to attention and raised his hand in salute. His friends did the same. And so she stood, Era Vance, no longer an outcast but an icon, surrounded by salutes from every level of command, from the rawest recruit to a 2-star general. General Thorne eventually lowered his hand. We need to talk, Wraith. There are people who want to know your back. My name is Era Vance, she replied firmly. I'm a logistics analyst. It was not a denial of her past, but a statement of her present. Thorne understood. Of course. Specialist Vance, your report on the logistical inefficiencies of this base. I trust it will be on my desk by the end of the week. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. It will be thorough, General. He smiled back. I have no doubt. He turned to Madsen. Colonel, my inspection can wait. Your primary concern is the well-being of your men. I suggest you listen to any further recommendations Specialist Vance might have. Her perspective is unique. Yes, General. Absolutely, Madsen replied, his gaze falling upon Era with a W. As the officers walked away, Era remained on the drill square. The recruits were still standing there. Riggs finally found his voice. Ma'am, what we did, there's no excuse. I am sorry. She looked at him, analytical but without malice. The first lesson of survival, private, is to never underestimate your environment or anyone in it. She didn't wait for a response. She turned and began to walk toward the logistics office, her work for the day not yet finished. She had reports to file, inventories to check, and a system to improve. The revelation of her past had not changed the fundamental nature of her present. The lasting image was not of the salutes or the apology. It was of her back as she walked away, a solitary figure moving with quiet purpose across the rain-slicked asphalt. She sought no accolades, no special treatment. Her reward was the work itself, the elegant puzzle of making a broken system whole again. The rain had washed the base clean, and in the quiet aftermath, a new order had been established. It was an order built not on rank or regulation, but on the unassailable truth of competence. Era Vance, the ghost, the analyst, the legend, had found a new kind of peace, not in the shadows of covert operations, but in the simple, profound dignity of a job well done and a respect that had been well and truly earned.